Time being 9 o'clock, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, would somebody could have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Justin, second by Dana. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Minutes. Is there an approval of the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second
Judy,
it.
second by Teresa. Any discussion? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Public comment period. Would anyone like to address the board, please?
Good morning, Commissioners. Ken Jumper from La Crescent Township. On January 22nd, the Houston County Planning Commission had a very controversial meeting, approved a new mining ordinance for the county. Dan Griffin, chairman of the Planning Commission, said that this ordinance would protect county residents from large-scale frac sand mining. In my opinion, nothing could be further from the truth. The fact is that this ordinance, as it now reads, will allow unlimited frac sand mining in Houston County. Everyone knows that 100 small mines will do just as much, if not more, damage to our county as 10 big mines. There is no reason to believe that any frac sand mining will be prevented from happening with this ordinance. Equally important, in passing this ordinance, the Planning Commission exceeded its authority. Minnesota statutes and the current county ordinance clearly state that the role of the Planning Commission is to, quote, recommend actions to the county board, not to amend and approve an ordinance as they did. The Planning Commission acted illegally in removing language that banned frac sand mining from the draft ordinance that was written by the Frac Sand Ordinance Writing Committee. Instead, they rewrote the ordinance, changing its meanings 180 degrees from banning frac sand mining to allowing unlimited frac sand mining. I would think that most people on the Frac Sand Ordinance Writing Committee, including you, Commissioner Walter, and Commissioner Zeminski, would be outraged at what the Planning Commission did. The Frac Sand Ordinance Writing Committee, not the Planning Commission, was set up with a clear directive from you, Commissioners, to draft an ordinance to deal with frac sand mining. That is what county residents expected. Instead, the Planning Commission hijacked the proposed ordinance and removed the ban language, completely changing the intent. Over a period of 8 months, the Frac Sand Ordinance Writing Committee met over 20 times. In the end, they produced a draft that banned frac sand mining in our county. Commissioners, I urge you to put language that bans frac sand mining in the proposed ordinance. If I may, Commissioner Walter, I'd like to correct you on something you said at last week's meeting. If you would go down to Bob Scanlon's office and interrupt one of his secret meetings, you'd find a copy of the proposed railroad siding for down by Brownsville, where starting at where 7 and 26 intersect. They're going to build a railroad siding for 2 to 3 miles long, where they're going to park a unit train of 150 cars. Just go down to Bob Scanlon's office and get a copy of that. Thank you, Commissioners.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Bruce Kiemikel from Caledonia. There's a public hearing coming up, the second of the two, and it's happening February 18 here at 10 o'clock. I'm assuming that you're going to allot 2 minutes per speaker that wishes to address the issue of the frac sand mining ordinance draft. I would ask you to give us, or anybody, 3 minutes instead. Planning and zoning did that. Most other governmental agencies do as well. I appreciate that. My second point is with regard to Reclamation Plan 110-2708 Subdivision 1, Reclamation Plan required. Any mining operation illegally commenced prior to the enactment of this ordinance, the 2009, that does not have an approved reclamation plan shall, not may, submit a reclamation plan to the planning agency for the review and approval within 5 years of the due date of the enactment of this ordinance. That ordinance was enacted in December of 2009. We've already gone through 2014, so it's been 5 years and a month and a half. Subdivision 2, reclamation plan commencement requirement, all mining sites shall, not may, be reclaimed after mining operations cease. Reclamation shall, not may, be complete within 1 calendar year after the operation ceases. Reclamation must commence when any of the following 3 conditions occur: within a period of 3 months after the termination of a mining operation; 2, within 3 months after the abandonment of such operation for a period of 6 months; or 3, within 3 months after the expiration of the mining permit, page 126. So I've gone to the zoning office and I've asked for the list of those mines that have not submitted and had an approved reclamation plan. Where is the list? When are you going to enforce the ordinance? When?
Anyone else wish to address the board?
Morning, Commissioners. Ken Holman, Houston Township. I'm sorry I have to read this, but it's hard to have a one-way discussion. There are a couple of problems with this public input process. First off, I don't know how much is getting put in. Secondly, I know I'm not going to get anything back out. A little more intercourse would clarify things and liven things up a lot. Governing by representation stratifies communication in such a way that the folks who represent and the folks who are represented are the least likely to regularly engage in meaningful dialogue. Most decisions are the result of communication between decision makers and their hand-picked advisors, thereby reducing the represented to token participants. I believe that the majority of your chosen advisors are clearly representing money interests, and so I have to ask you, how are you neutralizing or balancing this influence with the wishes of your constituents who, according to every poll and petition I've seen, are clearly against industrial frac sand mining? I wrote you 2 years ago that directing this industry and protecting the public with ordinances has the same likelihood of success as giving instructions to an avalanche. My opinion remains unchanged, but I am now concerned that you might actually consider the recently proposed ordinances. I see no section on health protection. How can this be with all the science and testimony that you've been presented with and that is available to you? I trust you are above the current fad of discounting science and fact with the incredibly stupid line, "I don't believe all that stuff." And legal costs. It was suggested that the cost of defending a prohibition would likely be high. I would suggest the cost would be a drop in the bucket compared to the cost this industry will exact on our county. I even think the cost of defending these ordinances is likely to exceed any prohibition costs. An obvious challenge is going to rise quickly. When people find themselves living 1,000 feet or so from a mine, they're going to want to cut and run. And the only way out, unless they can find a buyer who's blind, deaf, dumb, and almost dead. May I finish?
Wrap it up.
I'll try. Without taking a beating on their severely deflated property is going to be to mine it. They aren't going to care if they're a mile or a millimeter away from the nearest mine, and neither is a judge or a jury or an attorney one day out of law school. Sam is going to need a platoon of assistants to defend that ordinance. Incidentally, when legal or any other costs are tallied, cost to constituents has to be included. Private legal battles against this industry will be both heartbreaking and bank-breaking. May I go on or not?
Wrap it up, please.
One more thing. Now let's consider a mine that has created a 400-foot cliff 100 feet from an adjoining property. Does this require a 400-foot retaining wall? Or if it collapses or erodes at 45-degree angle and encroaches on the adjoining property 100 feet, is there a trust fund or a bond set up to make that neighbor whole again? And which enforcement agency does he call? And who pays the wages and costs of that enforcement agencies? And why aren't all these things and a whole lot more clearly addressed? The clock is ticking and the gun is not even half cocked. Oh, and before I forget, what about recovery on this 45 or 90 degree grade? Shall we nail, screw, or glue the 2 or 3 inches of the topsoil to it? Or should we just invent the fallacy of trying to recover a work of art?
Thank you, Kent. How about we call it quits?
All right. Thank you.
times do we have to read the laws and rules and regulations to all of you before you start enforcing it with your employees in the zoning department? As a citizen, I find this extremely frustrating. When do we get effective enforcement? And Mr. Schultz, I have a question for you. When you removed Mr. Jomi's document from the website, did anybody ask you to do that?
No, ma'am.
You did it all on your own?
Yes.
Thank you.
I want to just notice some good news, and that is, for the last few weeks, I've not been seeing the sheriff's department here, and I'm hoping that that means that our new sheriff is not going to assist special interest in pretending that the citizens speaking out to protect their interests is a criminal, dangerous thing. So I'm just happy to note that, you know.
Does anyone else wish to address the board?
Greetings, good
Jeremy.
morning, Commissioners. Jeremy Chips, La Crescent, how are you this morning? Thanks again for your service, as always. I'd just like to address a couple things, three things actually. UWL and a lot of data is coming in to your, and I'd like to share with you over the next few days some data coming out of, well, there's some new data and some existing reports showing great problems with this new industry. So I'd like you expect a couple of emails from me if you wouldn't mind. Two things, wind gradient and wind mapping. Wind mapping. Those of us, anybody who has a weather experience in the weather, weather newsman, you can call 19 or Channel 8, you can go down to the NOAA weather radio, and that's how we map how the weather moves and how wind moves. It's very interesting, and it brings up what the gentleman was discussing about setbacks. If we haven't analyzed wind mapping and how prevailing winds move, we need to look at that. Wind gradient. Anybody who's been through flight school or who's a pilot knows something about wind gradients. If you get in an aircraft and you fly in a jet at high speed, the higher you go, the more, it might be 5 or 10 miles an hour here, but down at 100 feet or 200 feet or 3,000 feet, the higher you go, that 5 or 10 mile an hour wind could be 20, 40, 60, 120 miles an hour at 20,000 feet. So those of us who've sat through a little flight school know that. So we need to take that into account, especially when we look at who might be buying property, say in any of our townships, perhaps La Crescent Township, perhaps, close to the high school. If we have sand-frac mines that are blowing wind mapping and wind gradients need to be taken into account. That's why I started to consider that maybe we should be looking at ban language. I know that Commissioner Justin, some people have arrived with different language and ordinance, so perhaps we need to look at that. Myself, going to research committee meetings every Monday mornings at 9 a.m., I realized, I'll close shortly, Mondays at 9 a.m., I thought, well, geez, why do I always find the door closed with a sign saying do not disturb, meeting in progress? Fortunately, some of us are bold enough to walk past those things, and I'm glad that I was able to. But that brings up other questions that some of the commissioners and a lot of people in La Crescent and towns near it have been asking. So in closing, I think we need to continue looking at the data. I ask you to continue looking at the science. I will endeavor to furnish you with good reports that I think could be educational and things that may not have been handled in that research committee or by the planning and zoning. So I thank you again. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jeremy. Does anyone else wish to address the board? If not, we'll move on with our regular meeting. And Tess, I think I saw her go by just a minute ago.
Back in the back room. She's in the back room.
Rick, would you get Tess from the back room, please?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Have several things on the agenda this morning. I've got public health first. At this time, I am recommending, based on what I understand has been the evaluation and performance of Public Health Director Mary Marshall. I'm recommending changing her employment status from probationary to regular, effective today. She has completed her one-year probationary period. I believe she's completed it with, what I would say, is flying colors. She has made several initiatives in the department as for regarding public health education and other items.
I have to agree with you. She's,
I'm not her
been very
supervisor,
progressive,
so
yeah.
I'm
She's
not-
been very progressive, I think, in her department. So I have to agree.
I will move that we change Ms. Marshall's probationary status to regular.
Motion by Dana, or Justin, excuse me.
I'll second it.
Second by Dana. Gotcha. Any other discussion? All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
Thank you, and congratulations to Director Marshall. Human Services, next. Karen? At this time, we're recommending changing the employment status of Jacqueline Snodgrass, who is a financial worker, from probationary to regular status effective February 11th, 2015. Do you want to make
Jacqueline came to us from the Child Support Department, so she had a lot of background in human services, and she has made a nice transition to the financial worker unit. She's quick, she catches on. She's actually at training today in the city, so she's a wonderful addition to our team.
I'll make a motion to change Jacqueline Snodgrass's.
Motion by Judy.
Second.
Second by Justin. Any other discussion? All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
We're recommending accepting the resignation of Carrie Allen, who's a financial worker, effective the end of the working day of February 24th, 2015. She has accepted employment elsewhere. She was very competitive credentials, and we wish her well. And so if we could formally accept her resignation as well as thank her for her service to the county, I would greatly appreciate it. Is there a comment?
Carrie's she's been with us, I believe, 3 years, and she has really grown. It's sad to see her go, but she's got a wonderful opportunity, and her new employer will have a wonderful person working for them. So sad to see her go, though.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation.
Motion by Teresa. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Judy. Any discussion? All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
Not too long ago, just a few months ago, we conducted a search for a financial worker. And so at this time, we're not recommending we're not recommending a new search to fill the vacancy that's will be created with Ms. Allen's resignation. Rather, we are recommending to the board at this time that we appoint our number 2 finalist in that rather recent search, and that would be Kirby Fitzpatrick, and appoint her as a probationary financial worker effective February 25th, 2015 at step 1 with an hourly wage of $16.28 per hour. I want to tell a little bit about Kirby.
Kirby is currently our case aide, so she's been manning the front desk. She's really stepped up. We've had people on leaves, people out of the office, and she has really proven herself, and this is truly a next step for her. She's helping out with interviewing, and she's our front line, and she just has done an amazing job out at the front desk.
And she was an active candidate in the recent
Yes.
search for that.
So that if she takes that, we'll just have a vacancy at the front desk to fill it. Yeah. Okay.
Which is our next item on the agenda.
Busy one?
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Justin?
I'll second it.
Second by Teresa. Any other discussion? All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
So, Commissioner Zemeski, we are recommending approving a search for a probationary case aide reporting to Supervisor Karen Kohlmeyer. And this would be a 1 FTE probationary position.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So motion by Judy, second by? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dana. Any other discussion? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
Thank you. Anything I missed, ladies?
Thanks, everybody. No,
Okay.
that does it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
At this time, let's talk about building maintenance for a moment. I'm recommending changing the employment status of John Dollar, building maintenance foreman, from probationary to regular status effective February 25th, 2015. John's highly, speaking as John's supervisor, John is highly capable. He brings many skills to the county. He is valuable in many, many ways as far as just the troubleshooting the various mechanical issues that we have across all of our buildings, and he does so in a very timely, efficient manner that's cost effective. Whenever we do go out for even to purchase our soaps or whatever it might be, he's very good about making sure we have quality product but at the lowest cost possible. So this foreman position was new for the county. He stepped into that role as far as working with other staff, developing very strong working relationships with the other maintenance staff, and I'm just very pleased to recommend him going to regular status.
He seems very well accepted by everyone, in the
Very
two
congenial
buildings.
personality.
Yes, very much
Super.
so. And
I'll make a
good worker.
motion.
Okay, motion by Judy,
Second.
second by Justin. Is there any other discussion? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
And lastly, we have jail.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Mark.
At this time, we're recommending reappointing Matt Mackey, who was a current lead, who would like to, has expressed interest in going back to be reappointed as a full-time jailer from the lead position. I believe he's done well as a lead. The issue is a matter of scheduling. We're a 24/7 operation, so there are some preferred schedules. And so at this time, we're recommending that you accept his resignation as lead jailer and reappoint him as a B232, step 3, which would be an hourly rate of $21.37 per hour. This I will necessarily take effect upon us being able to conduct successfully conducting an internal search for a new lead, which we discussed this morning. I think we'll post this afternoon. We will, looking at a deadline of letters of interest, with a deadline of next Wednesday, and coming to the board the following Tuesday, the 24th. So pending our success at appointment of a new lead, we would be able to fill both positions by the current vacancy for full-time jailer as well as the new lead on Tuesday the 24th at your meeting. We are leaving the current search for a jailer dispatcher open, and as if we're successful with drawing a new lead from our current pool of jailer dispatchers, we will need to obviously fill that position. So it's kind of a little bit of a game of dominoes, but just to let you know where we're going with that. So I think actually what we need today is approval to do our internal search for a lead jailer. And then we'll come back to you on the 24th, again with Mr. Mackey plus the new lead to verify the appointment of those two persons, one to be identified and one.
Do we need to accept his resignation as lead jailer?
Contingent upon our ability to fill that position. He has expressed that he will stay in that
Okay.
position
All
until
right.
such time we've successfully filled his position.
Okay.
You know, if nobody shows interest in the lead position with internal search, then we'd have to advertise for a lead position instead of a jailer dispatcher position. But we'll leave the jailer dispatcher position open, thinking that we'll have someone internally interested in that position, so it all makes sense.
Can it all go in one motion?
That was our discussion we were having prior to walking in here. I believe it would probably be simplest to accept his Matt Mackey's resignation as lead
Contingent.
jailer and reappointment as full-time jailer dispatcher, conditioned upon successful completion of an internal lead jailer search.
Okay, that's my motion.
Motion by Judy. Got that covered? Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Teresa. Any other discussion? All of those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, we got a finance update. Carol? Okay. Sure. We have no consent agenda. We need to approve no consent agenda? No. Okay, sounds good to me. Frac sand issue updates. I don't think there's any new
Just the public hearing next
public hearing
week.
coming up next week. Highway Department, we've
That's
got a...
in here, right?
Here?
Yeah.
Yes. Highway Department, we've got a meeting coming up next week,
Is it next week or this week?
17th.
Yeah, good, because I think it was this week, and I was going to tell you I can't be there.
You can't be there.
Yeah.
No, 17th
Yeah,
is
that's good.
what I've got. And Historic Jail. I don't think anything new there. Commissioner reports. Dana, would you like to start?
Sure. Last week I attended the EDA meeting on Wednesday, and we met with, talking about some driftless museum for the old jail. I had a tour of that with some people, with George Howe. Is that right, Judy?
Yep.
Yep.
Well,
He's the one
and
who
we
made.
toured with people from Caledonia who
Yeah.
are interested in seeing what there is to develop.
George was in that, made the movie, The Mysteries of the Driftless.
Mhm.
He was one of the co-producers.
Okay.
And it was a very good, talked about our summit coming up, and we got some really neat things going on in the summit in March 26th, I believe.
Mhm.
Then I also, on Thursday, I attended the extension meeting with Teresa. And when they organized, they were doing organization, got a new president, vice president, which we're not, we just voted on that. And then we were doing some work on Farm Family of the Year recognition. That's beginning to start, so. It was a good productive meeting. That's all I had last week.
Teresa.
Well, I had the extension meeting, which Dana really gave you a good talk, and we are working on the farm family applications. We had 3-4 names, I think.
Yeah, out of a big
So,
list.
out of 12.
12 lists.
I think. And we also, that was the first time I got to meet our new 4-H coordinator. She's really going to do a good job. She's really into it. She's had a lot of experience with it. In fact, her father is actually the extension educator coming out of Rochester area, so, for the region. So she's,
Rebecca Paulson.
yeah, Rebecca Paulson is her name. So very good, very vibrant personality, and working with kids all over the county. So I thought that was she gave a very good report.
She's going to be very good. Of course, I was part of the process of hiring her, so.
So you
And
knew
she-
her already.
She went through this process very well, and I think we got a great person. So.
Sounds good.
Yep.
And then yesterday, we had from 10 to 3, meeting with the Emergency Communications Board, which was ARMOR. ARMOR is just a part of it now.
Mhm.
It includes 9/11 and broadband now, too. So it was more of a less explanation what it's all about, what direction they're taking. It was a very good, long day.
Justin.
Nothing this week.
These are.
Oh, jeez.
No.
Not all about that. Thanks, Judy.
I had EDA with Dana, and I thought today we were accepting somebody to our board, but maybe it's
I don't
next
see them.
week.
I haven't heard anything about
Okay,
that.
we have another person joining our board, Joe Tessing from La Crescent. So we just have one spot left to fill now.
So kind of looking for somebody out of the Eitzen area.
Well, that's kind of what we're looking
Yeah.
for, is, the outlying area more, because we're well represented in Houston
Mhm.
and La Crescent and Holka. So, well, we have someone from Spring Grove also. So I think that that's going well. I also had the emergency radio board that Teresa talked about, and I just want to share some things that I found really interesting. One of the things they talked about is 80% of the calls that go into 911 now are coming from cell phones, which is a huge shift in the last 5 years. They're working at getting text to 911 being out there. They're not seeing a real demand for it yet, but it's going to be coming, so they want to cover that. It'll take more infrastructure in order to be able to do it. What else did I write down about that? Then they talked about how to fund the FirstNet and the 911 calls and all of that. They were talking about raising the tax on your phone bill, whereas now it's 89 cents
78 cents to 95.
to 95 cents. And they want to do it so it's on all phones, cell phones. And, they've been trying to work on this so that they have the funding for 911 and the emergency things. So it was very interesting. It was a good meeting. Long, good.
Long, good, okay. Good to hear. And I forgot to mention last week, I was at the Family Collaborative meeting in Teresa's place on the 29th, on Thursday. And last night I had SIMCAC, and discussion there was basically they're starting their annual audit, and according to the financial records that they have already on hand, they're in good condition. It's, for a nonprofit, they're doing very well. No issues at this time, I guess. Nothing came up. So that's what I have. Okay, would somebody like to approve the claims, human services, and license center disbursements? Need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the claims.
Motion by Dana. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Teresa. Any discussion? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion is carried. And then we need a resolution. You want to explain that?
Basically, Jamie, what's his last name? Rents our airport cropland, and he had some forms that need to be filled out for USDA, which I signed in Catholic County, but they want something to show that I'm authorized to sign. Basically, I talked to them, and they said if the board gives a resolution authorizing my signature, they're fine with it.
Basically what it is, program payments.
Correct.
So that they, we're allowing the program payments to go to the renter.
renter.
Correct. That's what it boils down to.
And we want to keep our renter happy. They're the only ones that even bid on the land.
The only ones that showed up.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution.
Motion by Judy.
Second.
Second by Justin. Any discussion? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
Should I say
Okay.
adopt instead of approve?
Either way.
Okay.
I'll read it the way it works.
Yeah, yeah.
So then do you need another motion for signing it too, or no?
Nope.
No.
Okay, just to approve your authorization, okay.
Okay, we're going to have Carol. I know she handed out, there she is, okay.
All right, so as I indicated in the email that went out with the report, that it's a typical January. We had a lot more money going out than we had coming in. We had a third pay period in January. We paid our property and liability insurance. We paid our workers' comp insurance. It's just the things that typically happen in January. And I guess you probably didn't really get a chance to look at the detail for the the commissioner's budget, but there was a transaction for $13,693.05 that was charged out to the 6264 account, and that was for our 2015 transitional reinsurance fee paid for the Affordable Care Act. That money was actually collected through premiums that we pay to the Southeast Service Co-op for our health insurance, and we've actually received a check for $20,000 and some odd cents to cover that. And the difference between them is the fact that, throughout the year when they were collecting it, we probably had more people on the policies than at the time we had to actually report how many people we had on the policy. So that'll be money that we set aside possibly for the 2016 fee if we have to pay more. So we'll keep that separate. And really, unless there are any questions, like I said, it's a pretty typical time and nothing alarming.
So early.
Yes, it is early. And sorry for the delay. It's always a challenge getting all the new year set up. And we did make our debt service, the first payments in January. They were due February 1st, so that's $800 and some thousand. Our next payment is strictly interest that's due in August.
Justice Center?
And how much does the interest run then?
Well, our total payments for the year are $1.3 million,
Okay.
and we paid $869,000, so
Okay.
$500,000 additional in interest. We're not really paying a lot on the principal right yet. We did pay one of them completely, 2009 A, B. But they were staggered, so we paid more principal on this one.
Okay.
And less principal on these, so the payments, the annual payments stayed more the same, rather than have big payments to start and then have them decrease. It's even kind of throughout the 30 years of the payments.
Okay.
Any questions? You can always email me questions.
Okay, thanks, Carol.
Okay, strategic planning immediately following, correct? Okay. I think we've come to the bottom of the list. Is there any discussion, comments? I think we should bring up what we should do with Dana's proposed ban. What do we do with it? Where do we go from here? I still feel that it had no place on the website, I'm sorry, until we act on it, or somebody acts on it. So that being the case, why I pulled it down and have left it down. But we need to move, we need to do something with it.
Could we?
What is the consensus?
procedure? What is?
Well, the way I read it, it should go to the Planning and Zoning Board for review and recommendation. That's the way I read it. Justin, you had a different take on it.
Well, I think you could do one of two ways. You could look at it from that aspect. The other thing is you could look at it as a simple change or amendment to what's already being proposed, just as if we were sitting here saying, hey, I think it should say, this instead of this,
Right,
I think
right.
that you're
It's a
well within
lot
your means
more-
of saying, well, I'd
yeah.
rather see this language, so I think it could go either way.
I talked with Sam, and a minor text amendment, you could do that.
Right.
This is numerous pages. I mean, this is more than just a text amendment. It's a literal amendment to our ordinance. So it needs probably a little bit more discussion than.
Yeah.
know.
I guess.
Do we have time to give it to the Planning and Zoning Commission? I don't know.
Well, they're
With your
allowed
posting.
60 days.
But, if we don't agree on the enforcement language that we're going to look at, then what? I mean, if we,
Okay, enforcement
Are we-
language where? In the
The
ordinance?
new one we've gotten from
The
the
one we've
planning.
got it proposed,
The one that will
okay?
be heard on the next public hearing.
Yeah.
What happens if we don't accept that? Then where are we at?
Then it goes back to
That
our
we
original.
We have an ordinance in place, and that's the one that will be enforced.
Default back to it.
We default to the original, exactly.
If that fails, then can we look at the ban? Can that be
Start
part
the
of?
60-day process.
Sure,
for the-
yeah. You know, as long as,
What does it do? Our moratorium is closer than 60 days.
right, next
end of
month.
our- end of our
It expires
moratorium.
next month. Our moratorium expires next month. I
So
guess on
the
the, you know,
defaulted ordinance
Yeah.
would take over until we have a new ordinance.
But as far as I know, I don't think there's anybody waiting in the wings, ready to, you know, move in the equipment and start any kind of extraction, anybody new anyway.
Yeah, anybody knew there's still players, but yeah,
Yeah.
anybody knew.
Mhm. So I don't think there's a real fear of, you know, rampant sand extractions as soon as the moratorium is over. But could be surprised. What's the pleasure of the board? We will, I guess, as a heads up, after our public hearing, our public meeting, which is on the 18th, there will not be a vote taken on that date.
Well, technically, there could be.
Could be, I won't allow it.
We should really take in
I'm
the
talking,
comments and.
right, I've talked to Sam. He has to prepare findings. Once we have those findings in hand, and then we can,
Act on them.
But how do you have findings if you don't know whether you approved it or not? You know, if we're not
Mhm.
if you're not taking a vote at the February 18th meeting.
yeah,
What
our
are you finding
our vote
facts
would
on?
be based on the findings.
Why don't we ask Sam that
Mhm.
question?
Yeah, Sam, in your letter, you had stated, actually, I think I've got it here, it said that anything after the 18th, it could be voted on.
You could, once that public hearing is, my understanding law, once that public hearing is, gaveled to a close, then you could take a vote. My thought is this, is that, whatever you do at that point, whatever the board chooses to do, I suppose unless if you just default back to the old ordinance. But my intent would be, and that's what I was just sort of getting a framework here, I've been gathering some data, is to draft findings. I guess my thought would be is that if you did take a vote, part of that, if you would say, whenever you say you went to a position where you adopt something, if you're going to, it's usually the idea that you would adopt something. So if you did adopt something, you have that motion to, it would be approved, and then I would ask for a second motion to have findings drafted by my office, and we could, and the way I read that law, I mean, given that this isn't the type of thing where the planning commission, nor it could be changed, if you get in a situation where it could be changed, like Commissioner Zeminski is indicating, then I think it would be proper that if you did take a vote, that there would be a second motion to have me come back and prepare findings in a week.
Yeah,
But you don't want to wait much more than that. And given the situation where there would be, say, a text amendment or something like that, then it probably would be what I call a belt suspender approach, to try to take your time to do that. Because it has two benefits. One is that I would anticipate if you took your vote on day one, so 7 days later the board would be approving these findings, is that I could distribute those findings to the board members, and they could take a look at them. And then if they had any chance, wanted to take a look at them and have an opportunity to discuss them with me, then if there was something was unclear or, you all have more, I come into this sort of bottom ninth with 2 outs and guy on third, is if there's something in here that maybe is factually incorrect, or what I'm getting from the minutes, maybe it's not exactly accurate, then you could correct it. And so that's what I would, if you anticipate that there would be maybe something changing, or this is sort of a fluid document, maybe the best approach would be, again, to approve whatever you're gonna approve, if you're gonna do that, and then if you're in that situation, then make a second motion, having come back with findings, and then prior to that, I would distribute it to the board, for you to, take a look at.
Sure.
So you're saying that we would vote day of the public hearing?
All I'm saying is this, is that if you vote, whenever you vote, I think it would be in the best interest to have 1 week. I'm gonna need a week to draft the findings.
Correct.
And so whatever you do, except if it just default goes back to the old ordinance, that in case you wouldn't have to do that. But what you would do is, whatever you do, if there is something being accepted, that give me a week to draft the findings after that. What I've seen on the law is that if you wait too long to make the findings, that's not a good thing, but you want to be able to, 1 week would be sufficient. If after you, when you take the vote, give me a week to draft the findings and circulate them to you.
Okay. Sure.
And then at that next meeting, you vote on the findings.
I see, sure, okay. So you'd still have to vote on the findings after?
Yeah,
I
the
see.
board would have to vote to approve the findings.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Should we be putting a committee together to come up with a policy on the webpage?
I don't know if it would be me or just more of the board's
Consensus of the board? Yeah, and
So like bring
Mhm.
things forward from,
I could get some sample policies from other counties if you would like.
that's what I think we should look at is
Okay, I'd
what
be
other.
happy to do that.
Okay.
and what is the consensus of the board as far as the proposed ban?
I think we
Thoughts?
should see how our public hearing goes next week, and then we can always move on with a
Right.
separate process for just that ban ordinance.
Mhm.
Go through the, because we can always do that. It's kind of a living document, ordinances.
Right.
We've heard that line a few times. It can be changed, it can be
Mhm.
at any time, once you go through the process.
Correct.
So you're saying wait till after?
We would wait till after our next week's public hearing and see how that goes, and then move on from there.
One thing at a time. Sound all right?
Because we would have to have a public hearing for the ban ordinance too.
So one time you started out saying we had to go to the planning and zoning, are we gonna?
That's
are we
my
gonna wait?
understanding of the
Is that
statute.
on hold now, the planning and zoning, seeing the
Well,
ban language?
under the ordinance, it's that way. Under the statute, it doesn't have to, but under the ordinance, it does.
Okay.
So, under state statute, it just has to hold one public hearing. If you read the Houston County zoning ordinance, it suggests that it has to get run through the planning commission,
Mhm.
so. But,
And that, I think, was done once already. It was brought up at planning at one time, I think, wasn't it?
What's that?
Your proposed ban.
Did you bring it up to
No.
the planning and zoning?
They
yet?
haven't seen my ban.
Okay.
We've
It wasn't
talked,
considered
we've
yet.
talked about the issue at some planning zone,
Yeah.
just in conversations.
Mhm.
They should probably each have a copy of it. Anyway. I don't know.
Well, I'm okay with it. I tried to show it to everybody and got took down, so.
Mhm. Any other discussion? This time? Okay. There being no further business,
I think we should recess.
reset, excuse me, we have a strategic planning, yeah.
recess or 5?
Meeting's not over.
Yeah.
Okay, works for me. Motion to recess by Justin,
I'll second it.
second by Teresa. In discussion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Take 5.